Chaos is the one constant you can always count on in life, whether it's unexpected setbacks, shifting priorities, or the sheer unpredictability of chasing big goals. But here's the twist: within that chaos, there's a hidden order waiting to be mastered. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. That's the core of Stoicism, not just enduring chaos, but wielding it as fuel for growth. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the noise of ambition or wondered how to stay focused when everything feels uncertain, this is where ancient wisdom meets modern hustle. Today, we're breaking down how Stoic principles don't just help you survive uncertainty, they teach you to dominate it, turning disorder into your advantage. Whether you're building a career, a business, or a life with purpose, these tools are your blueprint for thriving when others get lost in the storm. Let's dive in. Chaos isn't just randomness, it's everything outside your control. The traffic jam that makes you late, the sudden change in plans, the market crash that derails your goals. Stoics saw this not as a flaw in the universe, but as its natural state. Epictetus put it bluntly, "Some things are up to us and some are not." That's the dichotomy of control, the simple but radical idea that divides the world into two categories. On one side, external chaos, the actions of others, the weather, luck. On the other, internal order, your judgments, your efforts, your reactions. Here's the key: Stoics don't waste energy fighting chaos. They build an unshakable system within it. Think of it like sailing. You can't command the wind, but you can adjust your sails. Right now, take a second to pinpoint where chaos hijacks your focus. Is it a noisy workplace, unpredictable clients, the endless scroll of bad news? Those are your wins. The real question isn't how to stop them, it's how you steer through them. That shift in perspective, that's the first step to turning chaos from an enemy into an ally. Because when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you free up all that wasted energy for what actually matters: your response. Stoic dominance isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending chaos doesn't exist. It's the art of holding steady while the world shakes around you, like a tree with deep roots bending in a storm but never breaking. Seneca, the philosopher who faced exile, financial ruin, and even the whims of an emperor, wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." His letters reveal a man who didn't just endure adversity, but used it as raw material for growth. Picture a modern CEO navigating a company crisis: layoffs, plummeting stock prices, public scrutiny. While others panic, the Stoic leader focuses on what they can control: clear communication, decisive action, and maintaining team morale. That's dominance, not because they're immune to stress, but because they've trained their mind to respond, not react. So what's your storm? Maybe it's a last-minute deadline that throws your whole week into chaos, or a personal setback that leaves you doubting your path. Those moments aren't interruptions to your journey, they are the journey. The next time chaos hits, pause, ask yourself, is this something I can change? If yes, act. If no, adapt. That's how you shift from being at the mercy of chaos to mastering it. Amaphati, Latin for love of fate, might sound like passive acceptance at first glance. But dig deeper, and you'll find it's one of the most powerful mental frameworks for anyone chasing ambitious goals. Nietzsche, who built on Stoic ideas, called it the ultimate formula for human greatness, not just tolerating what happens, but embracing it as if you'd chosen it yourself. Picture an entrepreneur whose product launch fails spectacularly. The Stoic response: instead of wallowing, they dissect the failure for hidden lessons, maybe realizing the market needed a different approach or that their team's strengths lie elsewhere. That pivot, born from love of fate, often leads to breakthroughs that never would have emerged on the original path. History's full of these redirections. J.K. Rowling's rejected manuscripts forced her to refine Harry Potter into a global phenomenon. Steve Jobs' ousting from Apple became the creative fuel for Pixar and NeXT ventures that ultimately reshaped his legacy. The magic of Amaphati isn't in pretending setbacks don't sting, it's in asking, how does this free me to see something new? So take a moment with this. What recent obstacle have you been resisting? A missed promotion, a cancelled project, even a personal betrayal? What if you treated it not as a roadblock, but as fate's way of nudging you toward an uncharted opportunity? That shift from frustration to curiosity is where chaos starts working for you, not against you. Because when you stop fighting reality and start collaborating with it, every detour becomes part of the master plan. The Stoics had a secret weapon for navigating chaos, one that doesn't rely on changing the world but on refining how you see it. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly, take away your opinion about what seems to give you pain and you stand unassailable. That's the discipline of perception, the practice of stripping away emotional noise to see events for what they truly are, not what we fear or assume they might be. Consider the story of Thomas Edison, who watched his lab burn to the ground at 67, losing years of work in hours. While others saw ruin, he reportedly told his sons, "There's value in disaster, all our mistakes are burned up." Now we can start fresh. Within weeks, he'd secured funding to rebuild, eventually producing some of his most successful inventions. That's perception mastery, not denying the setback but refusing to let it dictate the narrative. Here's how to apply this today. Every chaotic moment you face, a missed train, a harsh critique, a sudden shift in plans, comes with a hidden choice. Will you see it as a catastrophe or a catalyst? The Stoic doesn't default to either extreme. They pause, dissect the event objectively, and ask, what's actually true here? A delayed flight isn't inherently bad. It's an hour to read that book you've neglected. A tough critique isn't proof of failure but free data to refine your craft. This mental pivot isn't about toxic positivity. It's about reclaiming agency over your inner world when the outer one feels unruly. Try this exercise for the next 24 hours. Carry a mental notebook. Each time something goes wrong, jot down your instant interpretation, then challenge it. Did that rude email really mean your project is doomed, or did the sender just have a bad day? By auditing these knee-jerk reactions, you'll spot patterns in how you assign meaning to chaos. And here's the breakthrough. Once you control the lens, the picture changes, because adversity doesn't shape you. Your perception of it does. That's how Stoics turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones, not by altering the world's chaos, but by upgrading how they move through it. Imagine facing chaos not with panic, but with calm readiness, because you've already lived through it 100 times in your mind. That's Premeditatio Malorum, the Stoic practice of rehearsing adversity before it arrives. Seneca called it fortifying the mind against life's ambushes. While most people dread uncertainty, Stoics train for it like athletes visualizing a race. What if the market crashes? What if the deal falls through? What if my health takes a turn? By mentally walking through these scenarios, you strip them of their power to shock you. Take Elon Musk's early SpaceX days when he admitted there was a high probability his rockets would explode. Instead of avoiding that reality, he embraced it, telling his team, failure is an option here. If things are not failing, you're not innovating enough. That's Premeditatio Malorum in action, naming the worst-case scenario to defang it. You don't have to launch rockets to benefit from this. Think of a chef tasting every dish before service, anticipating a critic's harsh review, or a surgeon running through complications before an operation. The principle's the same. Rehearsal breeds resilience. So try this tonight. Spend 5 minutes mentally unpacking one challenge you're avoiding. Maybe it's a tough conversation you've postponed, or a project deadline that feels shaky. Play it out in detail. What exactly would happen if things went wrong? How would you respond? The goal isn't to dwell on fear, but to map your exits before the fire starts. Because when you've already wrestled with chaos in your mind, reality feels like a rematch and you've studied the playbook. Here's the twist most miss. Premeditatio Malorum isn't about predicting the future, it's about expanding your range of motion for it. Like a chess grandmaster who's seen every possible board state, you stop freezing when life surprises you. Ryan Holiday, author of The Obstacle is the Way, puts it this way: the Stoics don't expect to always win. They expect to always know how to handle losing. That shift from fearing chaos to being curious about how you'll navigate it changes everything. So what's your move? Pick one looming uncertainty right now, personal, professional, even political, and give it the Stoic treatment. Ask yourself, if this happens, then what? The answer might just reveal how much stronger you are than the chaos you fear. Death might seem like the ultimate chaos, an unknown endpoint that makes many people freeze in fear or avoidance. But the Stoics flipped that perspective entirely. They called it Memento Mori, not a morbid fixation, but a daily reminder that time is the one resource you can never replenish. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Imagine holding that urgency in your mind without anxiety, just a quiet insistence on making today matter. That's the Stoics' edge in chaotic times. While others drown in distractions, you're anchored by the clarity that every hour counts. Modern culture often treats time like an infinite scroll, endless meetings, binge-watching, mindless scrolling, all under the illusion that later is guaranteed. But the Stoics knew better. Seneca nailed it in his letters. It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Procrastination isn't just laziness, it's a denial of mortality. Contrast that with figures like Steve Jobs, who famously asked himself daily, "If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do?" When the answer was no too often, he changed course, leading to breakthroughs like the iPhone. That's Memento Mori in action, death as a filter for what truly deserves your energy. So here's the challenge. Take your to-do list and run it through the last day test. Which tasks would suddenly seem trivial? Which conversations would rise to the top? For the Stoics, remembering mortality wasn't about fear, it was about liberation. It cuts through the noise of trivial conflicts, pointless busywork, and people-pleasing. The Roman general Cato didn't chase approval. He pursued integrity because he knew his legacy outlived him. That same focus can reshape your choices today. The email argument that felt urgent yesterday, does it matter if today's your finale? The project you've delayed for someday, why not start now? What makes Memento Mori so potent in chaos is its honesty. When storms hit, a layoff, a health scare, a global crisis, the distractions fall away and you're left with what's essential. The Stoic doesn't wait for chaos to force that clarity. They cultivate it daily, asking, if not now, when? So tonight before bed, try this. Name one thing you'd regret not doing if time ran out. Tomorrow, let that truth dictate your first move. Because in the end, it's not about how long you live, but how awake you are while living. And nothing wakes you up like remembering the clock is ticking. Imagine waking up tomorrow to find the one thing you rely on, your job, your business, your main source of income, gone. The panic, the uncertainty. Now imagine something far more powerful. You've already seen this moment in your mind 100 times, and instead of fear, you feel a strange calm. That's the art of negative visualization, a Stoic exercise that doesn't just prepare you for chaos, it robs chaos of its power to paralyze you. Epictetus, the philosopher born into slavery, knew this better than anyone. He taught his students, when you kiss your child goodnight, whisper to yourself, they may not wake tomorrow. Harsh, maybe, but his point wasn't pessimism, it was inoculation. By mentally rehearsing loss, you strip it of its ability to ambush you. Take the modern equivalent, losing a job. Most people avoid even thinking about it until it happens, scrambling to update resumes, network, or cut expenses amid panic. But the Stoic approach, they'd have already asked, what if my industry collapses tomorrow? And with that question, they'd start building skills outside their role, keeping savings buffer, or testing side projects not out of fear but preparedness. That's the difference between reacting to chaos and being ready for it. When the tech layoffs hit in 2022, the engineers who diversified their expertise or saved 6 months of expenses didn't just survive, they pivoted. Some turned freelance, others launched startups. The chaos didn't disappear, but their relationship to it did. Here's the challenge hidden in this practice. Negative visualization isn't about dwelling on doom. It's about spotlighting your agency. Picture a pilot running through emergency checklists before takeoff, not because they expect disaster, but because mastery means being unruffled if it comes. So apply this to your biggest ambition right now. What's the worst that could realistically go wrong? If your business fails, what's your next move? If that promotion slips away, what's plan B? The goal isn't to scare yourself, it's to uncover the levers you can pull even in the worst-case scenario. Because when you've already walked through the fire in your mind, the real heat feels familiar. And familiarity, that's where courage is born. Epictetus put it best, he who has seen the present has seen all things. By facing the full spectrum of possibilities, not just the rosy ones, you reclaim control. So tonight, carve out 5 minutes, close your eyes and ask, what's the one thing I'm most afraid of losing? Then mentally play out your response step by step. You'll find something surprising. The monster under the bed shrinks when you turn on the light, and that light, it's always been in your hands. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the classroom where resilience gets forged. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus put it bluntly, hardship is the true test of philosophy, for as muscles grow stronger with exertion, so does the soul with struggle. Imagine standing in the ruins of your best-laid plans, not with despair, but with the calm curiosity of a scientist examining data. That's the Stoic approach to failure, not a verdict on your worth, but feedback on your methods. Take the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who spent years battling invasions, rebellion, and plague. His personal journals reveal a man who didn't just endure setbacks, he mined them for wisdom. After a disastrous military campaign, he wrote, "The obstacle becomes the way," a mantra that turned stumbling blocks into stepping stones. History's full of Stoics who failed forward. Consider Cotto the Younger, a statesman whose relentless integrity made him enemies. When his bid to save the Roman Republic collapsed, he chose death over compromise, not as surrender, but as the ultimate act of defiance. Centuries later, his story fueled revolutions. Why? Because he proved that even in total loss, your principles can remain unbroken. That's the hidden curriculum of failure. It teaches you what you're truly made of. Modern parallels are everywhere. Think of James Dyson, who built 5,000 failed vacuum prototypes before landing on the design that made him a billionaire. Or Oprah Winfrey, fired from her first TV job for being too emotional, only to redefine media authenticity. Their secret wasn't avoiding failure, it was refusing to let failure define them. Now bring this home. Picture a moment when you fell short, maybe a rejected proposal, a botched presentation, or a relationship that crumbled. The Stoic question isn't, why did this happen to me? But what does this make possible? Maybe that failed project revealed a skill gap you've since filled. Perhaps that heartbreak clarified what you truly value in a partner. Failure strips away illusions, leaving only what's essential. So here's the challenge. Pull up an old wound from your past, one that still stings a little. Instead of flinching, ask it 3 questions. What did this teach me about my limits? How did it force me to grow? And if it hadn't happened, what strength might I lack today? That's the alchemy of resilience, turning leaden setbacks into golden wisdom. Because the Stoics knew something we often forget: smooth seas never made skilled sailors. The storms you've weathered, they're what allow you to navigate the next one with steadier hands. Cotto the Younger didn't just endure hardship, he chased it. The Roman senator slept on the hard ground even when beds were available, walked barefoot through snow, and wore threadbare robes in winter. To his peers, it seemed like madness. But Cotto understood something profound. Comfort is the enemy of resilience. By voluntarily embracing discomfort, he was inoculating himself against life's inevitable chaos. The Stoics called this ascesis, the deliberate practice of hardship to strengthen the mind. Fast forward to today, and you'll find the same principle in Navy SEAL training, Silicon Valley founders taking ice baths, or monks fasting for clarity. The logic is timeless. When you regularly step into discomfort by choice, the discomfort forced upon you loses its sting. Take something as simple as a cold shower. At first glance, it's just a brutal way to start the day, but look deeper, and it's a masterclass in Stoic discipline. That moment when icy water hits your skin, your body screams to escape, but your mind learns to stay. Over time, that small daily victory trains you to face bigger challenges with the same calm resolve. Tech entrepreneur Tim Ferriss swears by this practice, calling it a dose of voluntary stress that inoculates against involuntary stress. The same applies to fasting, digital detoxes, or even something as mundane as deleting your favorite app for a week. These aren't punishments, they're rehearsals. When chaos comes knocking, a financial setback, a sleepless night with a sick child, a high-pressure negotiation, you don't crumble. You've already met discomfort on your own terms. Here's the paradox most miss: voluntary discomfort isn't about suffering, it's about liberation. Every comfort you willingly set aside, an extra hour of sleep, that third snack, the constant dopamine drip of social media weakens chaos's grip on you. Marcus Aurelius, despite his imperial power, slept on a thin pallet and ate plain food. Why? Because he knew luxury softens the mind. Modern psychology backs this up. Studies show people who practice delayed gratification or embrace moderate stressors like cold exposure or endurance exercise develop higher pain tolerance and emotional regulation. So here's your challenge: pick one comfort to surrender this week. Maybe it's turning off notifications after 6 p.m., taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or skipping that late-night snack. Don't do it as punishment, but as training. Notice the resistance in your mind, then lean into it. Because every time you choose discomfort over convenience, you're not just building willpower, you're rewriting your relationship with chaos itself. As Seneca wrote, difficulties show what men are. The question isn't whether you'll face hardship, it's whether you'll let it break you or forge you. And that choice starts long before the storm hits. Here's the hidden superpower of Stoicism: not ignoring your emotions, but stepping back just far enough to see them clearly. Marcus Aurelius described it as viewing from above, that mental shift where you imagine looking down at your life from a mountaintop. Suddenly, the problem that felt overwhelming becomes just one thread in a much larger tapestry. Picture a CEO during a PR crisis while the team spirals into panic. She pauses, not to suppress her fear, but to examine it. Is this emotion helping or hijacking my response? That split-second detachment is the difference between reacting and responding. Journaling was the Stoics' secret weapon for this. Every night, they'd dissect their day like scientists, not to judge but to observe. Try this tonight. When chaos strikes, grab a notebook and divide the page into 2 columns. On the left, write the raw emotion: I'm furious about the missed deadline. On the right, strip it down to facts: the client changed parameters, we need 48 more hours. That gap between columns, that's where clarity lies. Modern psychology calls this cognitive distancing, and studies show it reduces stress by up to 30%. The ancient Stoics just called it wisdom. So what's your fog? Is it anger that flares up in traffic, making your knuckles whiten on the wheel? Anxiety that whispers you'll fail before a big meeting? Name it, then borrow Marcus' mountaintop view. Ask, if my best friend felt this way, what advice would I give? Suddenly, the emotion isn't you, it's just weather passing through. Naval Ravikant, the philosopher-investor, puts it perfectly. Anger is a hot coal you hold to throw at someone else, but you're the one who gets burned. Detachment doesn't mean going numb, it means holding the coal long enough to realize you can set it down. Tonight's challenge: pick one moment today when emotions clouded your lens. Replay it in your journal, but this time narrate it like a biographer writing about someone else. No drama, just facts. You'll find something startling. The chaos didn't change, but your grip on it did. As Seneca wrote, we suffer more in imagination than reality. When you stop conflating events with your interpretation of them, chaos loses its fangs. And that space between what happens and how you frame it, that's where your power has been hiding all along. Between what happens to you and how you react lies a sacred space one the Stoics called the discipline of ascent. Epictetus framed it like this: between stimulus and response there is a gap. In that gap is our power to choose. That split second when chaos strikes, the rude email, the missed deadline, the personal insult, is where Stoic mastery unfolds. Most people live reactively, like pinballs bouncing between triggers, but the practiced Stoic, they claim that gap as their domain. Take Theodore Roosevelt as a case study. After his wife and mother died on the same day, he wrote in his diary only a single X, then threw himself into work that would later define his presidency. What seemed like cold detachment was actually profound pause, the space between devastating loss and chosen response. Modern neuroscience confirms this wisdom. When we insert even a 10-second delay between trigger and action, prefrontal cortex activity increases by up to 30%. Shifting us from emotional hijacking to reasoned response. Here's how to cultivate that pause today. Next time chaos arrives, a colleague's snarky comment, a financial setback, try the ancient 10 breaths technique. Before speaking or deciding, inhale deeply while counting silently to 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, repeat 10 times, 40 seconds total. In that span, 3 things happen. Your nervous system resets, adrenaline dissipates, and clarity emerges. Historical figures from samurai warriors to Queen Elizabeth, I used variations of this ritual to maintain poise under fire. But the real power comes from identifying your personal flashpoints. Maybe it's rush hour traffic that turns your hands tight on the wheel, or a certain relative's backhanded compliments that make your jaw tense. Those are your training grounds. For Marcus Aurelius, it was the chaos of war. For a modern entrepreneur, it might be a crashing server during a product launch. Wherever your hot buttons lie, that's where the Stoic pause earns its keep. So tonight, do this audit. Track one day's emotional spikes in your Notes app. Every time frustration or anxiety surges, jot the trigger and your instant reaction. After 24 hours, you'll see patterns, and those patterns reveal exactly where to insert your pause. Because mastering chaos doesn't mean eliminating triggers, it means owning the space between trigger and action. As Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz using Stoic principles, later wrote, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our freedom. Your next move, start widening it, one breath at a time. Ambition without justice is like a ship without a compass, powerful but dangerously adrift. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who governed an empire, wrote, "What benefits the hive benefits the bee." His meditations overflow with this principle. True success isn't measured by personal gain alone, but by how your ambition ripples outward. Think of the Silicon Valley founder who builds a billion-dollar app, then pivots to ensure it bridges gaps in education, versus the executive who slashes jobs only to inflate their bonus. Both achieve, but only one embodies Stoic justice, the recognition that your gifts aren't just for you, they're threads in a larger social fabric. History's most enduring figures grasped this balance. Take Andrew Carnegie, the industrialist who ruthlessly dominated steel, then devoted his later years to funding libraries, universities, and global peace initiatives. Or modern leaders like Patagonia's Yvon Chouinard, who turned his outdoor empire into a weapon against climate change. Their ambition didn't shrink, it expanded to include others. Contrast that with cutthroat icons like Machiavelli's princes or corporate raiders of the 80s, who treated people as stepping stones, their legacies. Often cautionary tales, the Stoic insight here is subtle but profound. Justice isn't a tax on success, it's the architecture of lasting impact. Now turn the lens inward. When you chase that promotion, launch that side hustle, or build that personal brand, what's the larger equation? Are you optimizing solely for your bottom line or designing wins that lift others with you? Marcus Aurelius faced this daily, ruling during plagues and wars while asking, "How can my power serve?" You don't need an empire to apply that question. Maybe it's mentoring a junior colleague instead of hoarding knowledge, or choosing suppliers who pay fair wages over the cheapest option. Small just actions compound like interest in trust, loyalty, and reputation. Here's the twist: ethical ambition isn't softer, it's sharper. The Stoics knew that society remembers not what you took, but what you contributed. So as you plot your next big move, pause and weigh it against this ancient metric. Does this path enrich only you, or does it leave the road better for those who follow? Because legacy isn't built in trophies, it's etched in the lives you change. And that's how Stoics dominate without destruction, by aligning their rise with the rise of others. The chaos of ambition, it finds order in justice. Time isn't just ticking away, it's slipping through your fingers like grains of sand, and every moment spent on trivialities is theft from what truly matters. Seneca warned, "Life is long if you know how to use it," yet most of us live as if we have endless tomorrows. The Stoic approach to time management isn't about cramming more into your day, it's about ruthless prioritization in the face of chaos. Picture an emergency room doctor during a crisis. They don't panic at the flood of patients, they triage. The critical gets immediate attention, the urgent waits, and the trivial. It's ignored. That's the mindset. When everything feels like a priority, nothing is. Take your to-do list right now. How many items are truly aligned with your deepest values? Stoics call this isagoge the discipline of selective focus. Marcus Aurelius would review his duties each morning, asking, "Does this serve my purpose?" If not, it got scrapped. Modern productivity hacks like the Eisenhower Matrix or Warren Buffett's two-list strategy echo this ancient wisdom. Identify the vital few and ditch the trivial many. Consider how Steve Jobs pared Apple's product line from dozens to just 4 core items upon his return, saving the company from collapse. That's Stoic triage in action, cutting noise to amplify signal. Here's the challenge: scan your calendar for this week. Highlight every commitment that feeds your growth, relationships, or mission. The task Seneca called life-giving. Now circle the time sucks, mindless scrolling, obligatory meetings with no outcomes, chores that could be delegated. The gap between these lists, that's your leverage point. Try this experiment tomorrow. For every hour blocked, ask, "If this were my last day, would I spend it here?" The answers will terrify, then liberate you. Because when you stop conflating busyness with progress, chaos loses its grip. Seneca nailed it. People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they're most wasteful. So name your thief. Is it the rabbit hole of social media arguments, the perfectionism that keeps you tweaking rather than shipping, that one quick coffee that bleeds into 90 minutes? Whatever it is, declare amnesty today. Delete the app, set a hard stop, or say the awkward no. time wasted is life wasted, but reclaimed. That's the currency of mastery. The Stoics didn't leave their hours to chance. They guarded them like a lioness protects her cubs. Your turn. A broken bone doesn't end an athlete's career, it reveals their character. When a gymnast shatters her ankle mid-routine, the obstacle isn't the injury itself. It's the space between devastation and decision. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily on the battlefield, writing, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. That's the heart of Ryan Holiday's premise. Chaos isn't a detour, it's the trailhead of your next breakthrough. Take the story of NFL quarterback Alex Smith. After a gruesome leg fracture that led to 17 surgeries and near amputation, doctors told him he'd never play again. But Smith didn't see a dead end, he saw raw material. His comeback wasn't just about rehabbing tissue, it was about weaponizing the setback. Every infection became a lesson in patience, every painful step a masterclass in perseverance. 2 years later, he led the Washington football team to the playoffs, not despite the injury, but because of what it forged in him. The obstacle didn't block his path, it rebuilt his legs with titanium and his mind with grit. This is the Stoic pivot in action. When life hands you rubble, you don't clear it, you build with it. The entrepreneur whose funding falls through learns to bootstrap. Discovering frugality breeds creativity. The writer rejected by publishers turns to Substack, finding direct connection with readers. Even Marcus Aurelius himself transformed the stress of ruling a plague-ridden empire into the pages of meditations, proof that pressure can crystallize wisdom. So here's your challenge. Scan your life for the current roadblock. Is it a rival outperforming you? Study their playbook. They're the free coach showing you where to level up. A project stalled by red tape. Those constraints might be forcing innovation you'd never attempt in comfort. The Stoics didn't just tolerate obstacles, they interrogated them. What can this teach? Where does this force me to grow? Because the secret isn't overcoming chaos, it's realizing chaos was never your opponent. It's the sparring partner sharpening you for bigger rings. Tonight, grab a notebook and reframe one frustration. Twist it like a dial until the problem shows its hidden curriculum, that argument with your coworker. Maybe it's highlighting communication gaps you've ignored. The slow sales month, a nudge to revisit your ideal customer profile. When you stop resisting the obstacle and start reverse engineering it, you'll find what every Stoic knew. The wall in your path was always a ladder in disguise. You just needed to turn your gaze upward. Winston Churchill, pacing the war rooms of London during the Blitz, embodies Stoic dominance in modern history. With bombs leveling entire city blocks and Nazi forces advancing, he didn't just endure, he transformed fear into fuel. His famous words, "If you're going through hell, keep going," weren't empty optimism, they were battle-tested strategy. While others saw surrender as inevitable, Churchill saw chaos as the forge for national character. He slept just 4 hours a night, chain-smoked cigars, and delivered speeches that galvanized a nation, not by ignoring despair, but by acknowledging it head-on. That's the Stoic difference. Resilience isn't the absence of struggle. It's the refusal to let struggle dictate your response. History offers countless mentors for those willing to look. Take James Stockdale, the Navy pilot shot down over Vietnam and held as a POW for 7 years. Beaten, starved, and isolated, he credited Epictetus with saving his life. While his cellmates clung to false hopes of quick rescue, Stockdale faced the brutal facts. This is my reality now. How do I survive with integrity? He organized covert communication systems, memorized names of fellow prisoners to boost morale, and later said his ordeal was the making of him. Then there's Eleanor Roosevelt, who channeled personal betrayals and societal barriers into relentless advocacy for human rights. Her quiet mantra, "Do one thing every day that scares you," was Stoicism in action, voluntary discomfort as training for involuntary trials. but you don't need a history book to find these role models. Maybe it's the single parent in your community balancing 2 jobs while raising kids with grace, or the teacher who adapts lesson plans daily for students facing hunger or homelessness. Stoic mentors live in every corner of life, people who meet chaos not with Chinese letter, but with calm ingenuity. The question isn't whether examples exist, it's whether you're studying them like a disciple. When Elon Musk's SpaceX rockets kept exploding, he dissected biographies of explorers like Ernest Shackleton, whose Antarctic survival mirrored his own entrepreneurial endurance. So pause here and ask, whose footsteps steady you when the ground shakes? Is it a grandparent who weathered wars with quiet dignity, a coach who turned losses into playbooks? Even fictional characters like Atticus Finch or Katniss Everdeen can offer Stoic blueprints if their traits resonate. The key is specificity. Don't just admire their triumphs. Study their tactics. How did they reframe setbacks? What habits anchored them? Which principles were non-negotiable? Keep a running list, and when chaos comes knocking, ask, what would my mentor do here? Because role models aren't just inspiration, they're rehearsal. And in the theater of adversity, rehearsed moves become reflexes. The Roman playwright Seneca often closed letters with a challenge. Choose someone whose way of life pleases you and refer to them constantly as a guardian against chaos. Your mentor might wear a suit or scrubs, speak through centuries or across the dinner table, but their greatest gift isn't their story, it's how it rewrites yours. So who's your Stoic North Star? Name them, learn their rhythms, then step into the storm knowing others have navigated worse and left you a map. The day doesn't truly end when your head hits the pillow, it ends when you've reckoned with it. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, insisted his students close each evening with the same ritual. Examine your actions, your thoughts, your choices, not to judge but to see. Think of it as mental hygiene, the Stoic equivalent of brushing your teeth before bed. You wouldn't skip scrubbing away the day's grime from your mouth. Why let it accumulate in your mind? Here's how to turn this ancient practice into a 5-minute power tool for growth. First question, what did I truly control today? Not the traffic jam or your boss's mood, but your decision to leave earlier tomorrow or your choice to respond with patience. This isn't about blame, it's about spotlighting agency. The entrepreneur reviewing a failed pitch might realize, I couldn't control the client's budget cuts, but I could have prepared a more flexible proposal. That's gold for tomorrow's draft. Second question, where did I default to autopilot? Maybe you snapped at a barista without thinking, or mindlessly scrolled when you promised to read. These aren't moral failures, they're system glitches. Marcus Aurelius tracked his own autopilot moments in Meditations, catching himself complaining about rain instead of appreciating its necessity. Your turn, that afternoon meeting where you zoned out, note it. The extra dessert you didn't even taste, flag it. Awareness precedes change. Final question, what's one evidence of progress? Stoicism isn't about brutal self-criticism, it's about balanced growth. Maybe you held your tongue in an argument or finally delegated a task instead of hoarding it. Naval Ravikant journals nightly not to dwell on flaws but to spot the tiny wins compounding. That's the secret. Small victories recognized daily build empires of character. The magic lies in consistency. Keep this ritual bare bones, a pocket notebook by your bed or even a voice memo. No elaborate spreads, no perfectionism. Epictetus didn't demand essays, he demanded honesty. So tonight, when the day's noise fades, ask yourself, can 5 minutes of quiet reckoning save you 5 hours of repeating mistakes? The Stoics knew the answer. Your turn to live it. Words are your first casualty when chaos strikes, voice rising, thoughts jumbling, sentences sharpening into weapons. Seneca saw this coming 2,000 years ago, warning, speech is the mirror of the soul. As a man speaks, so he is. The difference between reacting and responding often hangs on a single breath, the space where Stoic communication turns turbulence into clarity. Picture an emergency room doctor delivering a critical diagnosis. Every word carries weight, every pause holds intention. That's the discipline of measured speech, not suppression but precision. Start with Seneca's 3 filters for high-stakes dialogue. Before speaking, ask, is this true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? The first test strips away exaggeration, no, always or never when facts will do. The second weeds out emotional dumping. Does this actually move the conversation forward? The third guards against collateral damage. Even hard truths can be delivered with care. A CEO announcing layoffs might say, this decision wasn't made lightly. Here's how we'll support your transition, rather than hiding behind corporate jargon. The words change because the intent does. Now, role-play a conversation you've been avoiding, maybe a negotiation with a difficult client or a heart-to-heart with a drifting partner. First, script your ideal exchange on paper. Next, rehearse it aloud while pacing. The physicality disrupts autopilot responses. Finally, inject chaos. Have a friend throw curveballs or set a timer to force brevity. The Roman orators trained this way, practicing speeches amid shouting crowds to steady their delivery. Modern negotiators use similar drills. FBI hostage tactics include repeating the last 3 words someone says to create space for clarity. But here's the litmus test. Track your tone for 1 day like a Stoic anthropologist. Every time stress creeps into your voice during a customer complaint, a toddler's tantrum, a gridlocked email thread, note the trigger. You'll spot patterns. Perhaps rushing makes you curt, or perceived disrespect flips a switch. Those moments aren't failures, they're data points. The writer Nassim Taleb calls this Antifragility, systems that strengthen under stress. Your communication muscles grow not when conversations are easy, but when you consciously soften your edges mid-chaos. The ultimate goal isn't robotic calm. It's choosing your words like a sculptor chisels each strike intentional, each stroke revealing the shape beneath the noise, because in the end, chaos doesn't dictate your tone, it reveals it. And what gets revealed, that's always your call. Deep down, we all cling to the same dangerous myth that with enough planning, enough worry, enough sheer force of will, we can control the uncontrollable. Epictetus saw through this 2,000 years ago when he wrote, "We control our reasoned choice and all acts that depend on that moral choice. We don't control external events, only the way we interpret them." Consider the early days of the pandemic. Restaurants that stubbornly waited for dine-in customers to return went under, while those that pivoted to meal kits and outdoor igloos found unexpected lifelines. The chaos didn't discriminate, it simply rewarded those who stopped fighting reality and started dancing with it. Look at your own life right now. That project timeline you're obsessively micromanaging, the friend who won't return your calls, the weather ruining your weekend plans, how many hours have you burned trying to steer these external currents? There's a liberating irony here. The more you release your grip on what you can't control, the more energy floods back to what you can. The Stoics didn't just tolerate uncertainty, they weaponized it. Like archers who focus solely on their aim, not the wind or the target's movements, they knew mastery lives in the internal game. So here's the challenge creeping through your screen. What's your version of shaking your fist at the sky? Is it refreshing your inbox, hoping for that one reply that'll magically fix everything? Overplanning a vacation down to the minute only to resent any deviation? Even something as mundane as road rage reveals the trap. Your honking won't dissolve the traffic jam, but your breathing exercises might dissolve your stress. The real cost isn't just wasted effort. It's the opportunities missed while you're busy wrestling ghosts. That colleague who adapted to remote work by mastering digital collaboration tools didn't just accept change, they exploited it. The pivot point comes when you trade. Why is this happening to me? For what can I build from this? Because control was always an illusion, but agency. That's your birthright. Every time you redirect attention from the uncontrollable to the actionable, you're not giving up, you're leveling up. And that's how Stoics turn the chaos of a storm into the energy that propels their ship. Think about how you strengthen a muscle: consistent reps, gradual resistance, recovery periods. Now imagine applying that same discipline not to your biceps but to your mind. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic philosopher who trained like an athlete, called philosophy the gymnasium of the soul. Just as you wouldn't expect six-pack abs from one sit-up, mental resilience isn't built in a single moment of crisis. It's forged in daily practice. Your mental workout plan starts with targeted exercises. Morning meditation is your 5-minute warm-up, focusing on your breath like lifting a mental weight. Journaling becomes your core routine, where you dissect reactions like a coach reviewing game tape. Negative visualization, that's your high-intensity interval training, deliberately stressing your adaptability so real chaos feels lighter. Even the ancient Spartans knew this secret. They trained in harsh conditions not to punish themselves, but so battlefield chaos would feel familiar. But here's the question most miss: what's your progressive overload for the mind? In weightlifting, you gradually add pounds to keep challenging your limits. For Stoics, it's voluntary discomfort, skipping the snooze button, taking cold showers, or having that awkward conversation you've avoided. These aren't masochistic acts, they're resistance bands for your willpower. Consider Marcus Aurelius, who despite his imperial power slept on a thin mat and ate simple foods. Not because he had to, but because he knew luxury weakens mental muscle. So tonight, sketch your mental fitness tracker. How many reps of gratitude did you complete today? Did you hit your sets of pausing before reacting? When you track growth this way, chaos stops being an opponent. It's just the gym where you train, because the mind, like any muscle, thrives on strain. And the heavier life gets, the stronger you become. Your only job: show up for the workout. Leadership during chaos doesn't demand louder voices, it requires steadier hands. Marcus Aurelius, guiding Rome through wars and plagues, wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good leader should be one." His reign wasn't marked by grand gestures, but by quiet consistency, listening to advisors before deciding, writing policies that outlasted his life, and treating even enemies with fairness. That's the Stoic leader's paradox: absolute strength wrapped in unshakable calm. Now, place this beside the reactive leadership we often see. The manager who berates employees after a missed deadline, the politician who flip-flops with every pole shift, the entrepreneur pivoting wildly at the first sign of turbulence. These aren't leaders, they're weather vanes spinning with the wind. Stoicism flips the script. Chaos isn't an excuse to abandon principles, it's the test that proves them. Consider a modern example. When Johnson & Johnson faced the Tylenol poisoning crisis in the 80s, their CEO didn't wait for regulators. He pulled 31 million bottles off shelves immediately, prioritizing public safety over short-term profit. That decision, costly in the moment, became a masterclass in ethical leadership because Stoic leaders play the long game. So here's your litmus test. Picture your current project, team, or even family dynamic. How would a Stoic approach it? First, they differentiate between what's urgent and what's important, skipping the frantic all-hands meetings for focused one-on-ones that uncover root issues. Next, they'd model emotional regulation. A leader's panic is contagious, but so is their poise. Finally, they'd ask, what's the just outcome here? Not the easiest, fastest, or most profitable, the just one. Because true authority doesn't come from titles, it's earned daily through choices that outlast the storm. The blueprint is simple but uncompromising. Clarify your values before crisis hits, so when chaos comes, you're not deciding, you're acting from habit. Like a captain who drills the crew relentlessly in calm seas so they move as one during a squall, your leadership isn't judged by the storms you avoid, but by how you sail through them. And the best captains know the wisdom to steer straight starts long before the clouds appear. True wealth has nothing to do with your bank balance. It's about how many mornings you wake up without dread in your chest. Seneca, the philosopher who advised emperors, wrote his most piercing letters about prosperity while living in self-imposed exile, eating simple meals on a wooden stool. His definition, he is richest who is content with least. In an age where hustle culture equates exhaustion with worth, this Stoic truth cuts deeper. Chasing money at the expense of peace isn't ambition, it's self-sabotage wrapped in a productivity podcast. Look at the modern paradox of successful lives. The entrepreneur grinding 90-hour weeks to afford a mansion they're never home to enjoy. The influencer with millions of followers but crippling loneliness. Seneca saw this coming 2,000 years ago when he warned, "It's not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." The Stoic measure of wealth wasn't possessions, it was possession of oneself. That's why Marcus Aurelius, leading an empire of unimaginable resources, journaled about the luxury of a clear conscience and time to think. So where does hustle culture go wrong? It mistakes motion for progress. Burning out isn't a badge of honor. It's a failure of priorities. Take the tech founder who brags about sleeping 4 hours a night while their health crumbles. Contrast that with Warren Buffett's famous advice, "You won't keep control of your time unless you can say no." True prosperity, Stoics argue, blooms in the space between enough and more, a space most never pause to define. Here's the pivot. Wealth isn't what you accumulate, it's what you no longer crave. The CEO who stops equating net worth with self-worth. The artist who trades viral fame for meaningful creation. Even financially, studies show happiness plateaus after $75,000 a year, proof that Seneca's ancient math still computes, your real currency. Time unburdened by anxiety, relationships untainted by transactional thinking, a mind unshackled from comparison. So tonight, try this audit. Light a candle, open your notes app and answer Seneca's challenge. What would you hate to lose that money can't replace? Maybe it's lazy Sunday pancakes with your kids, the novel you're writing just for the joy of it, that deep breath when you step into a quiet forest. Whatever surfaces, that's your true ledger, because no market crash can touch it, no recession can devalue it, and when chaos comes knocking, you'll realize the wealthiest people aren't those who have the most, but those who need the least. Epictetus described the mind as an inner citadel, a fortress no external chaos can penetrate unless you lower the drawbridge. That image isn't just poetic, it's a battle-tested strategy. Think of the last time stress hijacked your focus, maybe during a heated argument or a looming deadline. Your body tensed, your thoughts raced, and suddenly you're reacting instead of responding. The Stoic solution: cultivate stillness like a hidden refuge within. Breathwork is the simplest gate to this sanctuary. Navy SEAL use the 4-4-4 method. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4 to steady their hands before a sniper shot. But you don't need life or death stakes to benefit. Try it now. Pause and breathe through your nose like you're sipping air through a straw, then exhale like you're fogging a mirror. That deliberate rhythm taps into your vagus nerve, flipping your nervous system from fight or flight to rest and digest. It's not about eliminating stress, it's about creating space between stimulus and reaction. Nature offers another pathway. When Seneca felt overwhelmed by Rome's political scheming, he escaped to his countryside villa, writing, "I walk among ancient trees and feel time slow." Modern science backs this. Just 20 minutes in a park lowers cortisol levels more effectively than pop-up meditation apps. No forest nearby, even a potted plant on your desk or a window view of sky can anchor you. The key lies in sensory grounding, the weight of your feet on the floor, the texture of leaves, the way clouds drift without urgency. Now reflect, where's your personal sanctuary when the world feels stormy? Maybe it's the early morning silence before your family wakes, the hum of a library, or even the rhythmic pull of lifting weights. What matters isn't the location, it's the ritual. For Marcus Aurelius, it was journaling by candlelight. For a busy parent, it might be locking the bathroom door for a 5-minute face wash. These micro pauses aren't escapism, they're tactical retreats to recalibrate. The stillness strategy isn't passive, it's the ultimate act of defiance against chaos. Like a deep-sea diver maintaining neutral buoyancy amid crushing pressure, you learn to float where others sink. So tonight, map your inner citadel, sketch 3 triggers that hijack your calm, then pair each with a 30-second reset, a breath sequence, a mantra, even silently counting ceiling tiles. Because the storm outside doesn't determine your peace, only your readiness does, and that's a power no chaos can take from you. Every choice feels like a fork in the road when you're staring at a major decision, career shifts, relationship turning points, financial gambles. But the Stoics cut through this paralysis with one razor-sharp question. What's the most virtuous next step? Not the most profitable, comfortable, or impressive, the most aligned. Marcus Aurelius framed it as checking every impulse against your guiding principles. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Picture a mid-level manager offered a promotion that means relocating her family away from aging parents. The spreadsheet analysis of salary versus cost of living won't solve this. The Stoic move, she strips it down to virtue's loyalty to family versus ambition for growth, and realizes her true north isn't title inflation, but preserving care for loved ones while expanding skills laterally. Modern decision fatigue often stems from endless pros and cons lists that ignore our core values. The ancient Stoics replaced these with virtue checkpoints. Courage, does this choice shrink or expand my capacity to face hardship? Justice, who else is impacted by my decision, and am I honoring that responsibility? Temperance, am I chasing this out of genuine need or societal pressure? Wisdom, what would the version of me I respect most do here? When the entrepreneur Elon Musk sold his early company Zip2, he funneled the millions into his next venture rather than retiring, not because it was safe, but because it matched his virtue of relentless creation. Here's how to apply this today. Grab a blank sheet of paper and draw a vertical line. On the left, list the practical factors of your dilemma: salary, location, timeline. On the right, name the virtues at stake. Now cover the left side, the right column, that's your compass. A teacher choosing between a high-paying corporate training job and his underfunded classroom might see service and integrity glowing beside the kids who need him. The numbers might argue otherwise, but virtue economics compounds differently, in pride that outlasts paychecks, in influence that transcends job titles. Marcus Aurelius confronted this daily as emperor. When advisors pushed for punitive taxes to fund wars, he'd weigh at justice against expediency. His journals reveal a man constantly auditing his choices against his philosophical ideals. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. B1, that's the acid test, not what gets me ahead, but what makes me whole. Because when virtue charts your path, chaos doesn't scatter you, it reveals what you're made of. The next time you're stuck between 2 doors, try this. Place your hand on your chest and ask which choice lets you sleep without a shadow of self-betrayal. The answer won't always be easy, but it will always be clear. Real ambition moves at the speed of oak trees, not wildfire. Seneca warned his students, time discovers truth, a reminder that greatness isn't summoned in a sprint, but cultivated through seasons of invisible growth. Consider the bamboo plant. For 5 years after planting, nothing breaks the soil's surface as roots spread silently underground. Then, in a single season, it rockets 90 feet tall. Modern hustle culture would have labeled it a failure at year 3, yet nature understands what humans often forget. Mastery demands patience as much as passion. The myth of overnight success is history's most seductive lie. We celebrate Mozart's symphonies but overlook his childhood drilling scales under a strict father's watch. We marvel at Einstein's breakthroughs but ignore the decade he spent as a patent clerk refining his theories. Even sudden viral sensations like the band Portugal. The man had 12 years of touring dive bars before their hit Feel It Still took off. Stoics saw through this illusion long before social media's highlight reels. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it," meaning your perception of time either fuels perseverance or fuels despair. Now hold that truth against your own ambitions. That online course you're creating, the fitness journey you've started, the business idea you're nurturing, are you judging them by sapling standards while expecting redwood results? The Stoic shift happens when you trade frantic checking for consistent planting. Author Stephen Pressfield spent 17 years writing unpublished novels before The Legend of Bagger Vance broke through. His daily habit, showing up regardless of visible progress, that's the litmus test. Can you find joy in the work itself, not just the trophy at the end? Here's where Seneca's wisdom strikes deepest. In his letters, he compares life to a play. It's not how long the act lasts, but how well it's performed. The songwriter crafting melodies in a basement, the researcher logging failed experiments, the parent modeling values children won't appreciate for decades. They're all playing the long game. Their payoff isn't contingent on applause, it's woven into the work itself. So here's your challenge. Identify one seed only time can grow. Maybe it's finally drafting page 1 of that book, or reaching out to a potential mentor without expecting immediate returns. Perhaps it's committing to 6 months of skill building before reassessing, not 6 days. Write it down, not as a resolution, but as a contract with your future self. Then do the most stoic thing of all, trust the soil. Because while hustle culture obsesses over harvests, the wise tend their gardens knowing seasons don't rush, and neither does anything worth growing. Epictetus dropped a truth bomb 2,000 years ago that still echoes today. You become like those you associate with, not just in posture, but in perspective. Think about your last 5 conversations. Were you sharpening minds or complaining about the weather? The Stoics knew something modern science confirms. Our social circles sculpt our resilience, often without us noticing. Mastermind groups didn't start with Silicon Valley. They thrived in ancient Athens, where philosophers gathered to challenge each other's thinking. When Zeno of Citium lost his fortune in a shipwreck, he didn't rebuild his bank account. He built a community of thinkers that birthed Stoicism itself. Now audit your own circle. Who's your Zeno, the friend who asks, "What's the lesson here?" When you vent about a setback, the colleague who shares books instead of gossip. Contrast that with emotional vampires, the ones who drain hours with petty drama or dismiss your ambitions as unrealistic. Neuroscience shows our brain waves actually sync with frequent companions, mirroring their stress or calm. That's why entrepreneur groups like Y Combinator don't just fund startups, they curate cohorts where founders pressure test ideas over shared meals. Proximity is influence. But here's the twist. Community isn't just about taking, it's about mutual elevation. The Roman statesman Cato deliberately surrounded himself with critics to counteract his own blind spots. Modern equivalents, writing groups exchanging ruthless edits, fitness pods tracking each other's reps, even parenting circles normalizing struggles instead of Instagram perfect lies. The test isn't whether people cheer for you, it's whether they challenge you to outgrow yesterday's limits. Tonight, try this Stoic exercise. List 3 people you interact with most. Beside each name, note their dominant emotion last week: anxious, curious, resentful. Now ask, if you absorbed that energy daily for a year, where would it leave you? Because building a fortress of solitude makes no sense when storms hit. Real resilience grows in the trenches with allies who remind you, through word and example, that chaos isn't your opponent. It's the whetstone for your best self, and the right community, that's the hand steadying your blade. Seneca never saw a smartphone, but he diagnosed digital distraction centuries ago when he wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." Imagine his horror at modern life pings pulling your gaze from loved ones, endless scrolls replacing deep thought, the nagging itch to check notifications even during a sunset. The irony, technology that promised connection has left us more fragmented than ever. But Stoicism offers an antidote, not by rejecting tech, but by mastering your relationship with it like a Roman general commanding unruly troops. Start with Seneca's adapted filter for the digital age. Before unlocking your phone, ask, is this necessary? Is it meaningful? Is it timed? That quick Instagram check transforms when you realize you've opened the app 12 times today without conscious choice. The Stoic approach isn't about deleting accounts, it's about deleting autopilot. Try this experiment for one day. Tape a small note reading "Virtue check" to your phone's back. Every time you reach for it, pause. Is this scroll serving wisdom, justice, or courage, or just feeding anxiety? You'll find most digital chaos stems not from the tools, but from our unchecked impulses. Analog hours are the modern equivalent of Seneca's countryside retreats. Author Cal Newport practices digital minimalism by scheduling strict offline blocks, no screens during meals after 8 p.m. or during his morning writing ritual. The result, his productivity skyrocketed because attention, like a muscle, strengthens with rest. Even Silicon Valley insiders enforce tech boundaries. Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey takes weekend hikes without devices, while Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella champions focus weeks where meetings are banned. Their secret isn't willpower, it's designing environments where focus thrives. So what's your digital muting strategy? Maybe it's turning off all non-essential notifications. Research shows the average person gets 46 phone alerts daily, fracturing concentration into confetti. Or perhaps it's reclaiming transition moments. That elevator ride or coffee line doesn't need to be filled with frantic scrolling. Even small resets reprogram your brain. A study at the University of Virginia found participants who sat alone without devices for just 15 minutes later made better decisions than those who distracted themselves. The deeper truth, every swipe is a micro-vote for who controls your attention, you or Silicon Valley's algorithms. The Stoics would have seen through this instantly. If you don't consciously choose where to direct your mind, someone else will. So tonight, try this audit. Open your screen time report and circle the apps that drain more than they give. Then ask, if I have this time tomorrow, what could I create with those reclaimed hours? A chapter of that book, a real conversation, the space to finally think, because digital chaos doesn't disappear. It just meets those who decide their focus is worth defending. Your smallest choices today cast longer shadows than you think, like throwing a stone into a pond and watching the ripples stretch far beyond where it landed. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this, writing, "What we do now echoes in eternity." He didn't mean that metaphorically. Stoics saw time as a connected chain where every action, how you treat a stranger, the integrity behind a business deal, even your patience in traffic, sends vibrations forward. Take environmental stewardship. The plastic bottle you refuse today isn't just one less piece of trash. It's a silent lesson to your kids about consumption. It's data shaping corporate policies when millions make the same choice. It's a cleaner shoreline decades from now because you broke the habit of convenience. Now zoom out further, the Stoic cosmic perspective. Picture Earth from space, a tiny blue dot in an infinite black expanse. From that vantage point, your deadlines and drama look different, don't they? Yet this isn't about diminishing your struggles, it's about expanding their meaning. When astronauts describe the overview effect, that profound shift in awareness after seeing our planet from orbit, they echo Stoic wisdom. Your life is both fleeting and monumental. The energy company that pivots from fossil fuels to renewables isn't just chasing profits, it's realigning with a timescale beyond quarterly reports. The teacher who stays late to mentor a struggling student isn't just filling hours, she's altering a family tree. So here's the ripple audit, a practice the Stoics would have nailed to your door. Tonight, replay 3 seemingly minor moments from your day. That email you chose not to send in anger, the extra minute you spent listening instead of interrupting, the wasteful purchase you skipped. Now fast forward, how might those choices reshape your relationships, your savings, or even your health in 5 years? Historians note that Rome's decline wasn't caused by one catastrophic event, but by countless small compromises, corruption tolerated, resources squandered, principles eroded day by day. The inverse is also true. Greatness compounds through daily deposits of integrity. Legacy thinking flips the script on hustle culture. Instead of asking, "How much can I achieve?" you start asking, "How far can my goodness travel?" The farmer planting an olive tree they'll never sit under understands this. So does the coder open sourcing knowledge for future innovators. Your existence is a baton in a relay race you'll never see finish, but the way you carry it determines how smoothly the next runner grips it. So look past tomorrow's to-do list. When the dust of today settles, what's left standing won't be your busyness, but the echoes of what you chose to honor when no one was watching. Nassim Taleb revolutionized how we think about resilience with one word: antifragile. Unlike things that merely survive chaos, antifragile systems actually thrive on it. Think of your immune system after a vaccine, or a forest that grows denser after controlled burns. Now cross that idea with 2,000-year-old Stoic wisdom, and you've got a blueprint for ambition that doesn't just endure shocks, it metabolizes them into fuel. Epictetus put it bluntly, "Difficulties show men what they are. In storms, the oak proves itself." That's the difference between a business that collapses at the first market crash and one like Netflix, which started as a DVD rental service, pivoted through streaming wars, and emerged stronger because chaos forced innovation they hadn't initially planned. Take the story of a small organic bakery in 2020. When lockdowns emptied their storefront, they didn't just slash costs, they reimaged their entire model. Within weeks, they launched subscription bread boxes, virtual baking classes, and even partnered with local farms for doorstep deliveries. Their revenue didn't just recover, it doubled. Why? Because they'd unconsciously baked antifragility into their DNA, diversifying suppliers, nurturing community trust, and staying lean enough to pivot fast. The Stoics would have nodded in recognition. Seneca wrote, "Fortune falls heavily on those unprepared, but those who expect turbulence, they build wings on the way down." So how do you engineer this antifragility into your own ambitions? Start with voluntary stressors, the mental equivalent of weightlifting for your resilience. If you're a freelancer, simulate a client drought by living on 70% of your income for a month. Entrepreneurs can war game supply chain breakdowns with their teams, not to fear monger, but to uncover hidden flexibilities. Even something as simple as a monthly, no-tech weekend trains your brain to adapt when forced offline unexpectedly. The goal isn't to predict every disruption, it's to develop a mindset where disruptions become diagnostic tools, revealing where you're over-leveraged or rigid. Here's the twist most miss. Antifragility isn't about armor plating yourself against life. It's about cultivating a dynamic core that grows stronger precisely because it gets tested. Like a bamboo stalk bending in a typhoon or a startup that uses negative PR to clarify its mission, the chaos isn't the enemy, it's the unwitting coach pushing you to levels comfort could never inspire. So tonight, ask yourself one question. What's one system in your life, financial, creative, relational, that currently shatters under pressure? Now redesign it so the next shock doesn't just leave it intact but leaves it upgraded. Because the oak tree doesn't fear the storm, it relies on the wind to tell it where to grow stronger. Chaos doesn't disappear, it just meets those who have learned to navigate it with stoic precision. What we've uncovered isn't just ancient philosophy, it's an operating system for ambition in an unpredictable world. From Amaphati, loving fate even when it stings, to the split-second pause between stimulus and response, these aren't abstract ideas. They're levers you can pull today to steer through turbulence with clarity. Think of the CEO who treats market crashes as opportunities to innovate, or the parent who models calm for their kids during a meltdown. The tools are the same: control what you can, release what you can't, and find the order hidden in the disorder. Marcus Aurelius left us a battle-tested truth: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That strength isn't reserved for emperors or elite athletes. It's in the barrister who uses slow shifts to study for their degree, or the artist who channels rejection into sharper work. The chaos around you isn't the enemy, it's the raw material for your next evolution. So here's your invitation: start small, but start today. Try one stoic exercise, journaling tonight's wins and lessons, taking a cold shower tomorrow morning, or pausing for 3 breaths before reacting to a frustrating text. These tiny acts compound like interest, building mental muscle for life's inevitable storms. And if this resonates, share it with someone who's weathering their own chaos. Subscribe for more deep dives into turning obstacles into fuel. Because the most ambitious futures aren't built in calm seas, they're forged by those who learn to sail through squalls with stoic grit. The world needs more of that calm strength. Why not start with you?